Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, 57 prisoner exchanges have been held and 3,672 Ukrainians have been returned. The Ukrainian Parliamentary Commissioner for Human Rights Dmytro Lubinets has said. Of the 6 exchanges in 2024, 3 took place after the start of Ukrainian armed forces operation in Kursk region. Analysts explain this by the fact that the Ukrainian defense forces have taken a huge number of Russian conscripts into captivity, and Putin repeatedly promised Russians that conscripts would never take part in combat operations, but in Kursk region they were the first to be thrown into defense.
Probably such a large number of prisoners of war had never been captured before. This was the largest so far.
After the start of Ukrainian operation in Kursk region, Kyiv was able to return even those prisoners of war that Moscow had refused to hand over for a long time.
Today, another 103 Ukrainians, representatives of various units, have returned to Ukraine, back home from Russian captivity, and more than 60 of those are defenders of Mariupol, and also fighters of the special units of the Defense Ministry's Intelligence Directorate, Kraken and International Legion, Border Guards, the Navy, the Territorial Defense Forces, the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and the defenders of the Chernobyl plant.
Ukraine fulfills all the requirements of the Geneva Convention on the treatment of prisoners of war. Russian military personnel in Ukraine are provided with food and medical care. They can write and receive letters and parcels. They are regularly visited by representatives of international humanitarian organizations. In Russia, the situation is exactly the opposite. International organizations have no access to Ukrainians in Russian captivity. The UN Human Rights Monitoring Mission interviewed Ukrainian servicemen and civilians released from Russian captivity and established that each of them had been subject to torture. The captives are beaten and subjected to moral pressure. In captivity, Ukrainians are constantly starving. They are not treated, they have no contact with their relatives. Often, Russia does not even recognize Ukrainian citizens as prisoners of war until they are exchanged, human rights activists say.
Russia does not have any camps, and all Ukrainian prisoners of war are held even without the proper status in the usual places of detention, remand centers and often penal colonies.
Ukraine seeks to bring home all prisoners of war and civilian hostages, children and adults, as soon as possible. The Ukrainian Parliamentary Commissioner for Human Rights has said Kyiv is engaging partners to work on organizing exchanges. On October 30th and 31st, Canada will host a conference on the 4th point of Ukrainian peace formula, the release of all prisoners of war and deportees. The event is co-organized by Italy and Norway. Reported by Anastasia Tarnavska, Andriy Dmitrenko, UATV News.